Hello again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, hosting today's show once again. First graphic, breakup chart. Still showing a progressive breakup there of an increase in these areas that show some open areas along the Yukon River, either side of Fort Yukon, a little farther up the Porcupine than it was yesterday. Eagle still mostly ice, and Tanana River virtually open. And then of course, the lower Yukon and the northwest, or the Kobuk and Koyukuk rivers, are all still mostly ice. There's a flood warning there for the lower stretch of the Kuskokwim River. Aniak area, Kalskay doesn't really specify the areas there, but that warning due to ice jams, that remains out through Tuesday evening, actually. And as we move on to the hazardous weather graphics, the flood watch continues right on down to the Delta coast for the Kuskokwim River. That's also out for the time period tonight, tomorrow, and until 10 p.m. Tuesday. And no other watches and warnings or anywhere else in the state for weather or floods or anything else. All we have is a band of moisture, actually a couple of bands, one weak one spreading some showers up into the Wrangell Mountains this afternoon, light showers and an increase in the clouds. And clouds increased over the Kenai Peninsula, and showers have yet to even arrive at Cordova, but Yakutat picked up about 0.3 of an inch of precipitation with that band of clouds. Even heavier amounts occurred over the southern panhandle with Gustavus, 1,500. It's about the same at Juneau. Prince of Wales Island, some areas there had a little over 0.5 inch of precipitation, with Ketchikan picking up about 1/3 of an inch. So there's rain down in that area, and it's shifting northeastward, and shower and rain chances will increase during the night tonight all along the North Gulf Coast and south central Alaska. Otherwise, not much going on, just some scattered clouds and a little brisk on the northerly winds, gusts 35 miles an hour at St. Paul this afternoon. Also kind of breezy over the interior as well, with higher elevations such as Indian Mountain experienced gusts of 35 miles an hour. Today with Ruby, that's not as high in elevation, they still had gusts of 30 miles an hour, and north-northeast winds of 15 to 25 miles an hour pushed temperatures in the Madawaska-Susitna Valley, Palmer to Wasilla, Butte, into the mid-60s this afternoon with sunshine. Otherwise, south winds at 20 miles an hour kept it much cooler at Seward, but cloudy skies, and again, showers have yet to develop over Prince William Sound, but they should here, well, at any moment and into Sunday evening. Otherwise, Bristol Bay was mostly sunny after some morning low clouds and fog. Areas of low clouds and fog, Arctic coast, North Slope under high pressure is burning off during the afternoon hours, and you can see showers and clouds developing there from the northern Susitna Valley into the upper Tanana Valley, and again, Chisana picking about 1/100 of an inch of a light rain shower as of 3 p.m. this afternoon, with a little bit more along the North Gulf Coast and the heavier amounts over the Panhandle, but that's already starting to taper off over the southern southeast coast. High pressure in the Bering Sea trying to hold a frontal system back to the west there that brought rain into the western Aleutians. And the front's going to have a weakening effect on the high, and the high's going to have a weakening effect on the front. We'll see tonight that pushes rain into Adak and almost to Atk Island, probably toward morning as the ridge thins out. Otherwise, along the ridge and under the high, eastward, areas of low clouds and fog over all of the Bering Sea. Through the Bering Strait, Arctic coast, north slope, we'll see an increase in low clouds and fog once again. Showers diminish over the southern panhandle, and it stays damp and unsettled. Periods of rain, actually, for the North Gulf Coast, with showers trying to push into Cook Inlet, possibly the Madanuska Valley, but more likely there from the Wrangell Mountains on up into the upper Tanana Valley and 40 Mile Country. And moving on to the forecast for tomorrow, mostly cloudy, risk of showers, especially along the Alaska Range, southern Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound. Variably cloudy over the Copper River Basin, eastern interior, risk of a shower over the White Mountains, maybe up to the Yukon Flats, but mostly south of the Yukon River. Otherwise, mostly sunny north and west of that area. Low clouds and fog on the decrease, but persisting into the afternoon for the North Slope and Central Arctic coast. Clears out over the Panhandle, becoming mostly sunny in the afternoon. Not a bad day for the Alaska Peninsula. Pribilofs, partly sunny, light winds, and a much weakened low pressure area produces light rain into the central Aleutians. And moving on to the outlook for Tuesday, we've got a trough in the interior from the southwest coast right up through the Kuskokwim Valley, Tanana Valley, with some pretty good chances of afternoon showers for the upper Tanana Valley again, down to the Nabesna, again Chisana, and Toka Northway areas, but partly sunny, maybe mostly sunny. South of the Alaska Range, south central Alaska, be a few clouds, but a dry day for Kodiak Island, and showers back into the picture for the southeast coast. Low clouds and fog as high pressure redevelops again ahead of a stronger system that's pushing into the far western Aleutians there. And look for windy conditions with that. 25, maybe 30 knot winds as that approaches the Shimei and Attu area, with those winds possibly increasing as far east as Kiska or Amchitka, but the rain holding back west of Kiska and just affecting Shimei and Attu. High pressure, partly, maybe mostly sunny skies. Adak and Atka. Look for clearing, probably a pretty good bet at some point in the day. Tuesday, you'll see some sun for the Pribilofs, as well as the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians. Otherwise, areas of low clouds and fog will cover anywhere, or possible anywhere, over the Bering Sea up to the southwest coast, and that extends through across St. Lawrence Island, through the Bering Strait. Again, the same pattern, low clouds, fog, diminishing in the afternoon for the Arctic coast and North Slope, but persisting in some areas, especially the eastern coast. And again, the showers, doesn't look like it's unstable enough for any thunderstorms to develop, but some of the taller clouds could possibly develop into an isolated thunderstorm there over the eastern interior. But again, as I mentioned earlier, it should stay mostly sunny over south central Alaska, with partly sunny conditions for the North Gulf Coast. And from here, moving on to lows for tonight, again, dropping down to that 5 to 10 degree range for the Arctic coast and North Slope. Should stay above zero. Then south of the Brooks Range in the lower 20s, and 20s in the central interior, 20s, lower 30s, Kuskokwim Valley and the lower Yukon Valley, with upper 20s right out to the southwest coast, including the Pribilofs. Lower 40s, Kodiak Island, and near freezing northern Susitna Valley in the mid-30s, Copper River Basin, with upper 30s, lower 40s for the southeast coast. And for the highs tomorrow, we've got 15 to 20, Arctic coast, North Slope, and mid-30s, highest elevations of the Brooks Range, or Anatuvik, Adigan, Arctic Village, Chandler Lake in the 30s, south of the mountains, mid to upper 40s. And 40s to lower 50s, central interior, lower 50s, Kuskokwim Valley, and then mid to upper 50s, maybe near 60, Bristol Bay. And again, south central Alaska should be more clouds. I think it'll stay mostly in the 50s, but some areas might try to reach 60 in the late afternoon. Mid 50s, Copper River Basin, upper 40s to lower 50s for the southeast coast, and Kodiak Island highs, lower 50s, and then the 40s for the Alaska Peninsula, lower 40s for the Aleutians. And for the lows Tuesday morning, about the same for the Arctic coast and North Slope, down in that 5 to 10 degree range. Teens through the Brooks Range, mid to upper 20s south of the mountains, with looks like the Fairbanks area just barely getting down to freezing. Some areas staying above. Upper 20s, Copper River Basin, 30s, Susitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, near 40, Kodiak Island, in the lower 40s for the Panhandle. And then that'll be followed by highs Tuesday afternoon. Upper teens to lower 20s for the Arctic coast, and 50s to near 60 over the interior, with lower 50s along the North Gulf Coast, maybe upper 40s, lower to mid 50s in the Panhandle.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Okay, moving into flying weather Monday morning. IFR just grazing the central Arctic coast. Marginal VFR just to the east and west. Otherwise, north slope into the interior and western interior all the way down to the Auckland, Southwest Mountains, northern Bristol Bay. Good VFR. Marginal VFR that's increasing overnight, and by tomorrow morning will be over areas of Cook Inlet and the eastern southern slopes of the Alaska Range, as well as portions of the upper Tanana Valley. Prince William Sound, some IFR from Cordova eastward to Yakutat, improving over the Panhandle, especially south becoming VFR, marginal conditions north. Areas of IFR and marginal VFR for Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula, southeast Bering Sea, and the next front pushing a pretty good band of IFR eastward in toward Adak Island. And then for the afternoon, Monday, we've got VFR from the Arctic coast, Arctic Ocean, all the way down to the Alaska Range with marginal VFR again on the eastern and southern slopes of the central and western Alaska Range. IFR, Prince William Sound, mostly western Kenai Peninsula and up along the Coast Range, and Yakutat right on the edge of the marginal VFR, but from there, southeastward Dixon Entrance. Good afternoon coming up for the Panhandle, good with VFR. IFR over the Bering Sea, becoming VFR from Amchitka to Shemya. And for Tuesday morning, we've got back to the IFR, low clouds and fog, North Slope, Arctic coast, and looks like some IFR showing up over the Eastern Brooks Range, Arctic Village area, and marginal VFR south of there, possibly in the northern Kobuk, Koyukuk valleys, maybe the northern Yukon Flats, otherwise VFR on down, again, central or southern slope, central or western Alaska Range, marginal, Kenai Peninsula marginal. VFR, though, anchor point northward to Kenai and western Turnagain Arm to Palmer and Madanuska-Susitna Valley. All VFR. Big area of IFR, though, out over the Bering Sea up to the southwest coast in areas. And the Bering Strait, northern Seward Peninsula, IFR, and some marginal VFR, southern Panhandle, otherwise VFR from there into the eastern interior, and VFR western Aleutians marginal for the remainder of the Aleutian chain, the Alaska Peninsula. Tuesday afternoon, IFR holding central Arctic coast, marginal VFR north slope, and looks like some marginal VFR over the northwest interior to Selawik Valley, Kotzebue, Baldwin Peninsula, south across the eastern Seward Peninsula into Norton Sound, IFR and Nunivak Island, definitely for the Pribilof St. Matthew Island, and with the next front, IFR pushing into the Shemya area with marginal VFR eastward from there to Cold Bay, and Kodiak looking marginal. VFR, though, Kenai Peninsula, Gulf of Alaska, all of southern Alaska, including the southeast coast to Dixon Entrance, passes tomorrow, Anatuvik and Adigan, both VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, with marginal VFR on both eastern approaches. And for Rainy, same pattern, marginal VFR eastern entrance, otherwise VFR. Windy, southern entrance, possibly marginal VFR. And for Isabel, same trend, possible marginal conditions, southern entrance, otherwise VFR. Mentesta will be VFR. Tanita, VFR. Portage, marginal VFR, and then turning toward IFR in the eastern entrance throughout the day. Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, 4,000 feet up into the central interior, northwest interior actually, to the Selawik Valley, southeastward to the Panhandle at the surface from the Brooks Range, and then kind of plunging south on the colder air coming southward in those northerly winds to about the Pribilofs. And from there, taking a look at icing. Areas of possible considerable moderate western Prince William Sound, southern Kenai Peninsula, and light to isolated moderate, a weakening area of that coming into the central Aleutians. Jet stream, main jet clipping the western Aleutians, but well to the south of the forecast area. You can see it splits there south of St. Lawrence Island with one band coming up just east of the Panhandle around that upper level ridge over Canada, 9,000 feet. South 40 knots coming into the southeast interior, and west-northwest 40 just south of the Aleutian chain. And then we've got southeasterly flow pulling that moisture up into the North Gulf Coast and southern Alaska. Turbulence, light to isolated moderate shock, Prince of Wales Island, Prince William Sound, Turnagain Arm, northern Cook Inlet.
Hello
again. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. And joining us again, talking about the augmented reality sandbox, is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. And he's actually talking about a project from AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. A lot of acronyms, but some really fun stuff today, right, Eric?
You bet. We've got a learning tool that is a tool that's fun to use, and it really has a relevance to actually daily lives of anyone who goes outside and sees lumpy topography in Alaska. We've got a lot of mountains and such. You know, when I was younger and go on your first hike in the hills, say, you're given, maybe you're in the Boy Scouts or you get at the kiosk at the trailhead, a topographic map, a flat piece of paper with all these lines on it, bullseyes, long lines that curve back on themselves, say, perhaps things that look like this, a quadrangle or a topographic map. We've got here just to illustrate a couple of examples near Denali. Alaska has so much topography, so many mountains. And what are all these lines that we see? It can be tough to know what this means the first time you look at it. What we've got, all these lines represent lines of where the elevation of the topography goes through a certain level above sea level, say that this line represents where the mountains have gone from below 1,000 feet, mean sea level, up through 1,000 feet and above. That's your 1,000-foot contour. And when the mountain keeps going up, you're up to 1,200 feet, 1,400 feet, and so on. And that's how you get this little bullseye around the peak of a mountain.
Kind of makes layered slices, right?
Kind of like layered slices. Nice way to look at that. And when you see the lines are closer together, you're going up more steeply. If the mountain rises more slowly, it takes you longer in horizontal space to go through those different vertical increments. So
that is really hard to visualize.
Right. Imagine you're looking at a 2D piece of paper, two-dimensional piece of paper, but you're trying to understand what the three-dimensional world looks like. Well, enter the augmented reality sandbox. Yes, what is that? It is right here. We have the sandbox with us today, Sandbox 2.0, portable version.
Sweet.
Built up at University of Alaska Fairbanks. And we've got a couple of folks helping out today.
Let's see, Alana Valaji, and she's a mechanical engineering student from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. If you want to give us a thumbs up there, Alana, thanks for helping us out today. And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator from AKwx, also helping us out today. Thanks, Courtney.
And this tool here has a Microsoft Kinect to sense the level of sand in this sandbox. And then the Kinect feeds its information into a computer that then sends a signal to a projector to draw the appropriate topographic lines on this topography. The fun thing about this, as we can see here, is that the sandbox and its Kinect and its projector, they all work as a team. So here we've got a mountain in the middle of the sandbox. What if we took down the mountain to some degree? Watch as the software responds and redraws the topography.
Kind of a caldera forming there.
There you go, And what's fun about the sandbox too is it knows that gravity flows downhill, and we've got some water that's actually down in the lowest elevations. And what's happening now is we're making it rain a little bit. We'll fill up rain into that elevated lake bed, that caldera, as you said. And so now water is pooled up there. And what if you gouged out an outlet channel?
Glacial dam release.
There you go. The water flows out. What we're seeing here is a tool that allows people to touch and connect, Microsoft Connect, RRR, to connect two-dimensional topographic maps like what we have here, these flat things on a piece of paper, to the real three-dimensional world. I think this sandbox's real particular application as a learning tool to young people is, what does a two-dimensional map mean when it's trying to represent the three-dimensional world? This sandbox is kind of both at once. It's actually three-dimensional, lumpy topography there, the sand, but it's got these lines drawn on the three-dimensional sand that would be on a two-dimensional piece of paper.
Wow, that is a huge leap from the learning that we experienced when we were younger to how children and even adults are visualizing in these new forms of technology. Allows that to kind of reshape their thinking and visualize this in a very useful and absolutely hands-on way. It's amazing.
It's a hands-on tool, and
it's hard for me to sit here and not go play with that.
Well, that's what happened at GINA, up at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks, when the first model was being made, the prototype with plywood and such. We had professional adult professor types had heard about this, and they came by because they wanted to see how it worked.
Okay.
And everyone becomes that idealistic, wonder-filled youngster.
Sure.
And you just can't help but play with that, and to see how it reacts in time, and
Right.
it's a dynamic learning tool, and it
Dynamic,
responds.
That's exactly the word.
And
Yeah.
you wonder what applicabilities beyond a teaching tool for
Where does it
topography
go?
can it have? You can see how in Alaska we have inundation mapping as an issue. If you had water slosh inland, say in a coastal flooding event on the western coast of Alaska or the Arctic coast, you could see this. The concept is illustrated here as an introductory learning method. I think this is a potentially good outreach tool for all of us in Alaska.
Okay, so not only just a topographical sense, a mapping sense, maybe something that leads into understanding of how geographic information systems work with GIS, but also geology, if we wanted to get into kind of the formations and the bigger land masses and the representation of the 2D map. We could go into hydrology, which is very important in Alaska, of course. And even just understanding weather sense. Mounding up a big pile of sand could be that Arctic high pressure system sitting on top of Fairbanks, and the voids would be low pressure systems. This can go a lot of different directions.
Yes, exactly. It's not just landforms, but pressure has contours of high pressure and low pressure. And I wish I had had this kind of a learning tool when I was taking Meteorology 101 back 25 years ago.
Wow.
Would have been helpful, I think.
Probably would have gotten a better grade, yeah. Okay, thank you so much for coming by, Eric, and Alana and Courtney, thank you so much for your help there in the sandbox. We are going to play in the sandbox a little bit more coming up tomorrow on our next edition of Alaska Weather Facts. We hope you join us for that. In the meantime, make sure you go to alaska.edu/EPSCOR. That's alaska.edu EPSCOR to learn more information about what we're doing with this augmented reality sandbox around Alaska. We'll see you next time on Alaska Weather Facts.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at sea ice analysis. Thinning out pretty good south side of St. Lawrence Island, and no ice, very little anyway, south of Nunivak Island, and continuing to dissipate but persisting there, northern Bristol Bay. And the ice flow kind of drifting south with the northerly winds today, but not expected to make much southward advancement at all, and continue to slowly melt over the next several days. And for the coastal water forecast, for the southeast coast, small craft advisories, east winds 25 knots, seas 8 to 9 feet, lighter winds on the north coast out of the east at 20 knots, north 10, Lynn Canal, 15 knots from the north for Stevens Passage, southeast 10 for Clarence Strait with 3-foot seas. And for Tuesday, northern Lynn Canal, north winds 15 knots, becoming variable in the afternoon. Stevens Passage variable to north at 10 with slight seas, and northwest 15 for Clarence Strait. Small craft advisories continue or come back up to 25 knots from the southeast with 11-foot seas. Southern coast of the outer coastline, east 20 on the north coast with 9-foot seas. Prince William Sound small craft advisories tomorrow with seas at 6 feet and winds sustained 25 knots. Gale warnings out for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Winds east 35 knots, 12-foot seas, 30 knots out of the east for the western coast and Barren Islands. Northeast 25, seas 10 feet. Kamishak Bay northeast at 20, southern Cook Inlet north at 20, but small craft advisories north of the Forelands for northeast winds at 25 knots with seas at 5 feet. And outlook for Tuesday, lighter winds coming up for Cook Inlet, 10 knots out of the north and becoming variable in the afternoon, seas 3 to 4 feet. Prince William Sound, northeasterlies, 10 knots, seas 2 feet. And the North Gulf Coast, northeast, 20 knots, 9-foot seas. Same thing for the Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay, northeast 20 knots. And for the Kodiak Island area, north winds at 15 to 20 knots, strongest for Shelikof Strait. Otherwise, the Alaska Peninsula, west-northwest at 15, seas 5 feet. Southwest 15, 3-foot seas, Prince William Sound, for Bristol Bay. Tuesday, Bristol Bay, northeast at 15 with 2-foot seas, north 15 to 20 knot winds blow across the Alaska Peninsula with 6-foot seas. Castle Cape to Sitkinak, northeast at 20, seas up to 10 feet. And for Shelikof Strait, we've got northeast at 20, 6-foot seas. East side, eastern coast of Kodiak Island, Fognak Island, northeast 20 with 12-foot seas. Fox Islands, Unalaska Island, west 15, seas 4 feet. Unimak Island, we've got southeast winds at 20 to 25. Small craft advisory, 25 knot winds for the central Aleutian. And westerlies at 25 from Adak all the way out to Shemya. And for Tuesday, those become southeast, same speed, 25 knots, 5 to 6 foot seas. And 15 to 20 knot winds in the forecast for Adak and Atka. And for the Fox Islands, uniform wind and wave pattern for a change, northwest 15, seas 4 to 5 feet. Southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, northwest at 15. North of Nunivak Island to the Bering Strait, looks like northerlies at 20 knots, 2 to 3 foot seas. Northeast at 20 for Norton Sound with 3 foot seas. North 20 for St. Matthew Island. Northwest 15 for the Pribilofs. Outlook for Tuesday, Pribilofs north at 10, north 15 for St. Matthew Island and St. Lawrence Island, northeast 10 for the southwest coast. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, east winds tomorrow at 20 knots, 15 knots for the central and west side, north 15 for the Chukchi Sea. Northwest or north to northwest from Wales to Cape Beaufort, 10 knots. West side, east 15 to 20 for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And the central coast northeast at about 15 knots. For tonight, high pressure Arctic Ocean, the Russian Far East, keeps it dry with variable clouds or low clouds and fog over the water areas, but mostly dry over the interior. Band of showers up into the eastern Tanana Valley area, 40-mile country, and periods of rain for the North Gulf Coast, diminishing showers for the Panhandle. And a weakening front will push rain and breezy conditions into Adak and approaching Atka in the morning. That'll really weaken on tomorrow, so wind's not much of a factor, and periods of light rain, showers southern Alaska, dry to the north, sunny for the Panhandle, showers return on Tuesday. And for the interior, chance of showers along a trough north of the Alaska.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.